The distress signal from Theta 7 had been silent for 3 days when Ambassador Velkoth's ship finally arrived. The insectoid diplomat's compound eyes scanned the mining colony through the viewport, searching for signs of the raiders who had attacked it. What he saw instead made his antennae twitch in confusion. The colony looked fine. Better than fine, actually. The main habitat dome that had been reported as breached was now sealed with some kind of metallic patch that gleamed in the light of the system's twin suns. Colonists moved around outside in environment suits, working on repairs. There was no sign of destruction, no bodies, no debris field from destroyed ships. "This doesn't match the emergency transmission," his pilot said, her voice uncertain through the translator. "Should we proceed with caution?" Velkoth clicked his mandibles together, a gesture of thought among his people. "Yes, launch a probe first. I want to know what happened here before we commit to landing." The probe scan came back within minutes. 73 life signs, all Theta 7 colonists. No weapons fire detected. No active threats. But there was something else in orbit on the far side of the colony's small moon. A ship. Unknown configuration. Not in any Galactic Council database. "Open a channel to the colony," Velkoth ordered. The face that appeared on screen was a Beltorian, one of the mammalian species that had settled Theta 7 for its rich mineral deposits. Colony Director Vash looked tired but unharmed. When he saw Velkoth, something strange crossed his face. Relief mixed with something else. Fear? Unease? "Ambassador Velkoth," Vash said. "Thank goodness you're here. We sent that distress call 4 days ago. We thought no one was coming. We came as quickly as we could. What is your situation?" The scans show no immediate danger. Vash's ears flattened against his skull, a sign of distress in his species. "The raiders are gone. We're safe now. But Ambassador, we need to talk about the humans." Velkoth felt a chill run through his carapace. Humans. The new species that had just made contact with the Council 6 months ago. The ones who had appeared out of nowhere with faster-than-light travel and an unsettling eagerness to meet everyone. "The humans are here?" Velkoth asked carefully. "They saved us," Vash said. The words should have sounded grateful, but they came out strained. "The raiders came 3 days before our distress signal reached anyone. They breached our habitat, took hostages, threatened to kill us all if we didn't give them our entire mineral stockpile. We thought we were going to die." Velkoth leaned forward. "What happened?" "A human ship detected our distress call. They arrived within hours. I don't know how they got here so fast. Their jump technology must be incredible. There were only 12 of them, Ambassador. 12 humans against 40 raiders." Vash's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "It took them 8 minutes to end it." 8 minutes, Velkoth repeated. "They boarded our colony through the breach. We heard the fighting, the screams. The raiders had weapons, experience, advantages of position. It didn't matter. The humans moved through our corridors like they could see through walls. They used our own mining equipment as weapons. One of them killed 3 raiders with a maintenance tool. Another one sang while she fought." "Sang, Ambassador?" "We watched it on our security feeds." Velkoth's translator struggled with Vash's next words because the colony director's voice was shaking so badly. "When it was over, the humans gathered all of us in the main hall. They had saved us. Not one colonist died. They had lost none of their own people. The raiders were all dead or captured. And then the humans smiled at us and asked if anyone needed medical attention." "That sounds like a successful rescue operation," Velkoth said. Though something about this story troubled him. "You don't understand. The way they fought, it was brutal, efficient. They knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage. Our security footage shows things that I can't unsee. But then, immediately after, they were kind. They treated our wounded. They shared their food with our children. They fixed our habitat breach in 6 hours, using techniques our engineers had never seen before. They've been here for 3 days, helping us rebuild, and they won't accept payment. They just keep saying they were happy to help. Velkoth processed this information. Are they holding you hostage? No, Vash said quickly. That's what makes it so disturbing. They genuinely seem to want to help. They work harder than anyone. They're always cheerful, and they keep telling us we're brave for surviving the raid. But Ambassador, we watched what they did to the raiders. These humans are the most dangerous things I've ever seen, and they act like they're our friends. They don't seem to understand that we're terrified of them. The conversation was interrupted by a new voice on the channel, speaking in the human language that Velkoth's translator rendered as cheerful and casual. Hey, Bear. You must be the council ship. I'm Captain Sarah Chun of the human vessel, Wandering Star. We've been helping out here while waiting for official help to arrive. Want to come down and meet everyone? We've got coffee brewing, and the colonists just finished baking some kind of bread thing that smells amazing. Velkoth looked at the transmission data. The human signal had piggybacked on the colony's channel without triggering any security alerts. They had been listening the entire time and hadn't bothered to hide it. Captain Chun, Velkoth said carefully, I appreciate your assistance with Theta 7. I would like to speak with you and assess the situation. Absolutely. We'll meet you at Landing Bay 2. Oh, an ambassador? We captured 5 of the raiders alive. Figured the council would want to question them. They're in our ship's hold, all patched up and ready for transport. We kept them comfortable. It's important to treat prisoners with dignity, you know? The channel closed. Velkoth sat in silence for a long moment, his antennae twitching rapidly. Sir? His pilot asked. What are your orders? We land, Velkoth said slowly, and we observe very carefully. I think we may have encountered something unprecedented. As their ship descended toward Theta 7, Velkoth reviewed the security footage that Vash had transmitted. He watched humans move through corridors with frightening grace, saw them eliminate threats with brutal efficiency, heard one of them humming a melody while subduing a raider twice her size. Then, in the next clip, he watched that same human kneel beside a crying child, offering a piece of candy and telling a joke that made the child laugh. The juxtaposition was deeply unsettling. These humans switched between deadly violence and gentle kindness without any apparent transition, as if both states were equally natural to them. They had saved the colony, yes, but watching them work, Velkoth understood Vash's fear. The humans didn't act like they had done anything extraordinary. They acted like this was normal, expected, the right thing to do, and that, Velkoth realized as his ship touched down, might be the most terrifying thing of all. Linguist scholar Tixral had been studying human transmissions for 2 months when she discovered the problem. It started simply enough. The Galactic Council had assigned her to analyze human language and culture after the Theta 7 incident. They needed to understand these new aliens before deciding whether to grant them full council membership. She sat in her research chamber surrounded by holographic displays, each one showing different aspects of human communication. Their languages numbered in the thousands, their cultural variations were staggering, and their history was soaked in blood. But none of that surprised her. Most species had violent pasts. What surprised her was what she couldn't find. Tixral's specialty was moral linguistics, the study of how different species conceptualized right and wrong. Every species in the council had a word for it. The Churiks called it void thought, the deliberate choice to cause harm. The Sethri called it pattern breaking, actions that disrupted the natural order. Her own people, the Zenthiri, called it shadow walking, knowingly choosing the dark path. But humans? They had dozens of words that circled around the Concept: evil, wrong, cruel, immoral, wicked, bad. Each word meant something slightly different. She ran the terms through every analysis program she had, cross-referenced them with human philosophical texts, examined their usage in historical documents. The conclusion was inescapable. Humans didn't have a word that truly captured what other species meant when they talked about intentional wrongness. They had words for actions, for outcomes, for judgments. But they lacked the fundamental concept that other species took for granted, that someone could know they were the villain and choose it anyway. She needed to understand why. Tixrell began consuming human entertainment, the stories they told themselves about themselves. She watched their films, read their books, analyzed their songs. What she found made her scales prickle with unease. Human villains were always explained. The evil emperor had a traumatic childhood. The mass murderer was mentally ill. The invading army believed they were bringing civilization. Even their most monstrous historical figures were endlessly debated, with humans arguing about motivations, circumstances, and whether they truly understood the harm they caused. She found stories where the villain won and was revealed to be right all along. Stories where heroes became villains and villains became heroes depending on the perspective. Stories where both sides committed atrocities while singing songs about defending their homes. Tixrell pulled up a human historical database and searched for their wars. The results made her physically ill. Humans had fought themselves constantly throughout their history. But the disturbing part wasn't the violence. It was the language. She selected a war at random, something called World War II. She read the accounts from both sides. The nations called the Allies spoke of freedom, justice, and defending civilization. They had committed to stopping tyranny at any cost. They wrote songs about it, made films celebrating their sacrifice. Then she read accounts from the other side, the nations called the Axis. They spoke of honor, destiny, and protecting their people. They had committed to creating order in a chaotic world. They too wrote songs about it, made films celebrating their sacrifice. The words were nearly identical. Both sides believed they were the heroes. Both sides believed the other was wrong. And when it was over, the humans who won spent decades arguing about whether the humans who lost were evil or misguided or products of their circumstances. She found this pattern everywhere in human history. Every conflict, every war, every atrocity came with explanations and justifications and debates that continued for generations. Humans couldn't seem to accept that anyone was simply the villain. There always had to be a reason, a cause, a deeper explanation. Tixrell compiled her findings into a report. She sent it to the council with a priority flag. Then she did something she had never done in her 30 years as a scholar. She requested a personal meeting with the council leadership to present her conclusions in person. 3 days later, she stood in the council chamber before representatives from all 47 member species. Ambassador Velkoth was there, having returned from Theta 7 with his own disturbing observations. The chamber was designed to hold thousands, but today it felt too small. Honored Council, Tixrell began, her voice steady despite her fear. I have completed my analysis of human moral psychology. My findings are troubling. She activated the holographic display. Text from human languages filled the air around her. Humans do not believe in villains, she said. Not in the way we understand the term. They believe in people who make bad choices, people who are misguided, people who cause harm through ignorance or circumstance or mental illness. But they do not believe in people who choose to be evil. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Setheri representative, a crystalline being named Kethser, spoke up. That seems like a positive trait. They believe in redemption. No, Tixrell said. You misunderstand. They don't believe in redemption because they don't believe anyone was truly fallen to begin with. To them, Everyone is the hero of their own story. Everyone has reasons. Everyone believes they're doing the right thing. She changed the display to show the security footage from Theta 7. The council watched as humans tore through raiders with brutal efficiency. Then they watched as those same humans comforted children and repaired equipment. "Watch carefully," Tixral said. "Notice how they transition between violence and kindness. There is no pause, no hesitation, no moment where they stop to consider what they've done. Because to them, both actions are the same. Both are helping. Both are right." The footage continued. Captain Chun appeared on screen, talking to a wounded raider while medical manates worked on his injuries. The audio was clear. "You made some bad choices today," Chun was saying to the raider, her voice gentle. "But everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do next. You can choose to be better." The raider, a vicious criminal who had murdered 17 people in various raids, stared at her in confusion. "You killed my friends," he said. "I stopped people who were hurting innocents," Chang corrected. "I'm sorry it had to go that way. If you'd surrendered, we could have talked. But you chose violence, so we responded. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you made a bad choice. There's a difference." Tixral paused the footage. "This is the terrifying part," she said to the council. Captain Chun believes what she's saying. She genuinely doesn't see herself as a killer. She sees herself as someone who stopped bad behavior. The raider is not evil to her. He's just someone who made mistakes. "That does sound compassionate," another representative said. "Does it?" Tixral challenged. She pulled up more footage, this time from Human Entertainment. "Let me show you a human story. It's fiction, but it reveals how they think." The story played out on the displays. A human hero fought against a tyrant who had enslaved millions. The hero won, killed the tyrant, freed the slaves. Standard narrative. But then the story continued. It showed the tyrant's childhood, his own enslavement as a child, his rise to power, his belief that only through strength could he prevent others from suffering as he had. "The story wants us to understand the tyrant," Tixral explained. "To see him as a person who made understandable choices given his circumstances. And this is not unusual. This is how humans tell almost every story. Everyone has reasons. Everyone believes they're right." She turned to face the council directly. "Imagine negotiating with a species that believes this. They will fight you with absolute conviction, believing they are the heroes. They will destroy you if they think it's necessary, and they will do it while believing they're saving the galaxy. And afterward, they will offer you medical care and try to understand why you opposed them." Velkoth spoke for the first time. "At Theta 7, the humans captured 5 raiders alive. They kept them fed, comfortable, and treated their injuries. Captain Chun told me they did this because everyone deserves dignity. When I asked her about the raiders they killed, she said those deaths were unfortunate necessities. She showed no guilt, no satisfaction, no emotion about it at all. It was simply something that had to be done." "Exactly," Tixral said. "Humans are terrifying because they will do anything, absolutely anything, while genuinely believing they are good people doing the right thing. They don't have the psychological framework to see themselves as villains. They are always the heroes of their own story, even when that story involves atrocities." The chamber fell silent. Finally, the council leader, an ancient Boltorian named Marsh, spoke. "What do you recommend, Scholar Tixral?" She had been dreading this question. "Honestly, I don't know. How do you deal with a species that doesn't understand the concept of being wrong? They can be reasoned with, they can be negotiated with, but they will always believe they have the moral high ground, even when they don't." The silence stretched longer this time. Somewhere in that chamber, everyone was thinking the same thing. If humans truly believed they were always the heroes, what would they be willing to do in the name of good? The trade dispute between the Carvelians and the Sethri had been brewing for months when it finally exploded. Carvel Station, a massive trading hub in neutral space, became the center of the crisis. The Carvelians believed the Sethri were exploiting their mineral-rich planets with unfair trade agreements. The Sethri believed the Carvelians were demanding unreasonable terms and threatening the trade routes that kept dozens of systems supplied. Both sides had valid points. Both sides refused to back down. The council sent mediators, including Ambassador Velkoth and, against his advice, a human delegation. Commander Sarah Chun led the human team. Velkoth had read her file a dozen times since Theta 7. Decorated officer. Excellent combat record. Known for unconventional problem solving. The file made her sound competent and dangerous. In person, she was somehow worse because she seemed so normal. Ambassador Velkoth, Chun said, shaking his foreleg in that strange human greeting. Good to see you again. Tough situation we've got here. Indeed, Velkoth replied carefully. Commander, I must advise caution. The tensions are extremely high. Any misstep could trigger violence. Chun smiled. That human expression that showed teeth. Velkoth had learned it was meant to be friendly, but his instincts still read it as a threat display. Don't worry. We're just here to help facilitate communication. Sometimes an outside perspective makes all the difference. The negotiations took place in a conference room overlooking Carvel Station's main commercial district. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species moved through the markets below, unaware that their peaceful trade might soon end in war. The Carvelian delegation sat on one side of the table, their rock-like features set in angry lines. The Sethri sat opposite, their crystalline bodies refracting light in sharp, aggressive patterns. For 3 days, Velkoth watched the humans work. They listened to both sides. They asked questions. They shared meals with both delegations separately. They were patient, understanding, and completely ineffective. Neither side would compromise. On the 4th day, everything went wrong. A Carvelian extremist group called the Stone Brotherhood had been watching the negotiations with growing anger. They believed their government was too soft, too willing to negotiate with exploiters. They decided to take matters into their own hands. The explosion tore through the Sethri embassy on the station's lower levels. Velkoth was in his quarters when the alarm sounded. By the time he reached the command center, the situation was already critical. 20 Sethri diplomats and staff were trapped inside. The Stone Brotherhood had sealed the embassy and were making demands. If the Sethri didn't agree to leave Carvelian space entirely within 1 hour, the hostages would die. We need a military response, the Sethri chief negotiator said, his crystalline voice sharp with panic. Send in security forces now. That will kill the hostages, the Carvelian representative argued. The Brotherhood members are desperate. They'll trigger the explosives. Velkoth's antennae drooped. This was exactly what he had feared. The situation was about to become a war. Then Commander Chun stepped forward. Let us try, she said simply. Absolutely not, Velkoth said. Commander, this is not like Theta 7. These are not raiders. These are ideological extremists who believe they're fighting for their people's freedom. They won't surrender. Chun looked at him with those strange human eyes. Ambassador, everyone can be talked to. Everyone has reasons for what they do. Let us try to understand them. Maybe we can find a solution that works for everyone. There is no solution, the Sethri negotiator said. They're terrorists. They're people who feel like they have no other options, Chun corrected gently. People who are scared and angry and desperate. I've dealt with situations like this before. Please, give us 1 hour. Against his better judgment, against every instinct he had, Velkoth agreed. He authorized the human team to approach the embassy. He told himself later that he agreed because there were no other options. But truthfully, he was curious. He wanted to see what the humans would do. Chun and her team of 6 humans entered the embassy through a maintenance tunnel. Velkoth watched through surveillance feeds, his heart hammering in his thorax. The humans moved through the corridors carefully, weapons ready but not raised. They made no attempt at stealth. When they encountered the first Brotherhood member, Chun called out to him. "Hey there. We're here to talk. We brought food. You guys hungry?" The feed showed the Brotherhood member's confusion. He raised his weapon, but Chun just stood there, holding up a bag of what looked like human rations. "Seriously, we know you've been in here for hours. When's the last time you ate? Come on, let's sit down and talk about what's going on." What followed was the strangest hostage negotiation Velkoth had ever witnessed. The humans didn't demand surrender. They didn't make threats. They shared food. They listened to the Brotherhood members explain their grievances. One of the humans, a large man named Rodriguez, sat on the floor with a young Carvelian militant and talked about their homes. "I grew up in a mining town, too," Rodriguez said, his voice carrying through the embassy's audio system. "The big corporations came in, took what they wanted, left us with nothing. I get it. I really do. You feel like no one's listening, like the only way to be heard is to do something big." The young Carvelian stared at him. "Your people exploit you too?" "Used to. We fixed it, though. Took time, took work, but we made changes. You know what helped? People talking. People finding common ground. Violence just makes everyone defensive. Makes them stop listening." Velkoth watched in disbelief as the humans slowly, methodically turned a hostage situation into a conversation. They acknowledged the Brotherhood's pain. They validated their feelings. They suggested alternative approaches. And somehow, impossibly, 3 of the 5 Brotherhood members started to waver, but 2 didn't. The leaders. They were too committed, too deep in their ideology. When Chun tried to approach them, they raised their weapons and shouted that they would rather die than surrender. What happened next took 4 seconds. The humans moved like they had practiced the maneuver 1,000 times. Rodriguez grabbed the young Carvelian he'd been talking to and pulled him to safety. Chun and 2 others rushed the leaders with stunning speed. There was a brief, violent struggle. One leader fell unconscious. The other reached for the explosive trigger. A human named Park shot him. One precise shot through the arm, severing the limb before the trigger could be pressed. The leader screamed. The hostages screamed. And then, before the echo had faded, Park was kneeling beside the wounded leader, applying a tourniquet, her voice calm and professional. "You're okay. You're going to be okay. We've got you. Stay with me." The leader stared at her in shock. "You shot me." "I saved you," Park corrected. "You were about to kill yourself and 20 innocent people. I stopped that. Now hold still. This might hurt a bit." Chun was already helping the hostages evacuate. Rodriguez was talking quietly to the 3 Brotherhood members who had surrendered, telling them they were brave for choosing peace. Another human was checking the unconscious leader for injuries. Velkoth felt like he was watching something from a nightmare. The humans had just resolved a hostage crisis by making friends with terrorists, then shooting some of them, then immediately providing medical care to the people they'd shot. And they acted like this was completely normal. The aftermath was chaos. The Sethri were grateful but disturbed. The Carvelians were horrified that their extremists had been both befriended and neutralized. The station authorities didn't know how to classify what had happened. Was it a successful negotiation? A military operation? Some bizarre combination of both? Commander Chun's official report was 3 sentences long. Situation resolved. Minimal casualties. Both parties agreed to renew talks. Recommend counseling for Brotherhood members. Valkoth found her in the station's medical bay, where she was visiting the wounded leader. The Carvelian was sedated but conscious. Chun sat beside his bed, talking to him like they were old friends. "You made a mistake today," she was saying. "But everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do next. You've got a voice now. People heard you. Use it wisely next time." The leader looked at her with something like awe. "You're the one who shot me. I'm the one who stopped you from dying," Chun said. "Big difference. Now get some rest. You've got a long recovery ahead." Outside the medical bay, Valkoth confronted her. "Commander Chun, what you did in there was reckless and dangerous and completely against protocol. Did it work?" Chun asked simply. "That's not the point." "That's exactly the point, Ambassador. We saved lives today. We prevented a war. We gave those Brotherhood members a chance to be heard and a chance to choose better. Yes, 2 of them got hurt, but they're alive and they'll recover. Everyone won today." Valkoth's antennae twitched in agitation. "You befriended terrorists. I talked to people who felt like they had no other way to be heard. There's a difference. You shot someone and then told him he was brave." "He was brave," Chun said, looking genuinely confused by Valkoth's distress. "He could have killed himself, but he chose to live. That took courage." And in that moment, Valkoth finally understood what Tixrol had been trying to tell the Council. Humans genuinely didn't see the contradiction. Chun truly believed she had been heroic today. She had saved lives, prevented violence where possible, used force only when necessary, and shown compassion to everyone involved. To her, it was simple, clear, obvious. To everyone else, it was terrifying. The Devourer fleet appeared at the edge of Council space on a Tuesday. Valkoth would always remember that detail. How such a catastrophic event happened on such an ordinary day. The Devourers were not a species in the traditional sense. They were a collective of different races bound together by a simple philosophy: take what you need from those weaker than you. For 300 years, they had swept through the outer regions of the galaxy, consuming civilizations, stripping planets, and leaving nothing behind but ruin. 12 species have been completely destroyed by them. Dozens more had been enslaved. The Council's military response was immediate. Every available ship was mobilized. Defense stations were armed. Evacuation plans were activated for border worlds. The projections were grim. Even with their combined forces, the Council would lose nearly half their territory and billions of lives before the Devourers could be stopped. If they could be stopped at all, the War Council met in emergency session. Valkoth attended as part of the diplomatic corps, though he knew diplomacy would be useless here. The Devourers didn't negotiate. They had been contacted hundreds of times over the centuries. They simply took what they wanted and moved on. Commander Sarah Chun was there too. The humans had been granted provisional council membership after the Call Station incident, though the vote had been close. Now she sat among military leaders from 47 species, looking calm while everyone else radiated tension. "We should evacuate the border systems immediately," Marshal Ketzer said. His crystalline form flickered with anxious light patterns. "Buy time for our main fleets to assemble. That will cost us valuable defensive positions," another officer argued. The debate raged for hours. Valkoth listened to strategy after strategy, each one more desperate than the last. The fundamental problem remained unchanged. The Devourers were too strong, too numerous, and too experienced. They had done this before. The Council hadn't. Then Chun raised her hand. The simple human gesture somehow cut through the chaos. Everyone turned to look at her. "What if we talked to them?" she asked. The silence that followed was absolute. Then someone laughed. It was a bitter, hopeless sound. "Commander Chun," Marshal Ketzer said with strained patience, "the Devourers have never negotiated. Not once in 3 centuries. Their perspective is that they're stronger so they can take what they want," Velkov said. He'd heard Chun make similar arguments before, and they still made his antennae twitch. Right, but why do they need to take things? What's driving them? Are they desperate? Ideological? Just following old patterns because no one's offered them an alternative? Chun leaned forward. "Every conflict I've ever seen had a solution. You just have to understand what people actually need, not just what they're demanding." "They're not people," someone said. "They're monsters." Chun's expression shifted slightly. Velkoth had learned to read human faces over the past months. That particular look meant Chun was about to say something she believed was important. "Everyone's people," she said quietly. "Everyone has reasons. The Devourers have been doing this for 300 years. That's not random. That's a system, a culture, a way of life. Which means it can be changed. We just need to show them a better option." The War Council rejected her proposal. It was insane, suicidal, based on a naive understanding of how the galaxy worked. The humans were new here. They didn't understand what the Devourers were, but Chung requested permission for the human fleet to act independently. Just 12 ships. They wouldn't interfere with Council military operations. They'd just try their own approach on one of the Devourer advance fleets. The Council agreed. Partly because they were desperate. Mostly because they didn't expect the humans to survive, and 12 ships wouldn't be missed in the larger battle. Let the humans learn the hard way that not everyone could be reasoned with. Velkoth requested to observe from a long-range monitoring vessel. He told himself it was for diplomatic documentation. Really, he had become morbidly fascinated by humans. He needed to see what they would do. The human fleet intercepted a Devourer advance force 3 days later. 15 Devourer ships against 12 human vessels. The surveillance drones captured everything. The humans opened fire immediately. No warning, no attempt at communication first. Velkoth's antennae went rigid with shock. The humans had talked about negotiation, about understanding, about finding peaceful solutions. But now they attacked with the same brutal efficiency they'd shown at Theta-7. The battle lasted 18 minutes. The humans fought like they had been studying Devourer tactics for years instead of weeks. They used maneuvers that exploited every weakness in Devourer formation patterns. They targeted specific systems with precision that suggested intimate knowledge of Devourer ship design. 3 Devourer vessels were destroyed. The rest were disabled. Then the humans did something unprecedented. They boarded the Devourer command ship. The surveillance drones couldn't penetrate the ship's hull, but they picked up communication signals. Velkoth listened in growing disbelief. "Hey, there." That was Chun's voice, cheerful and casual. "Sorry about the rough introduction. We needed to get your attention. Anyone hurt? We've got medical supplies." There was no response on the channel for several minutes. Then a voice, deep and resonant, speaking in the Devourer tongue that Velkoth's translator rendered as ancient and commanding. "You attack us and then offer aid? What game is this?" "No game," Chun replied. "We needed to establish that we're not prey. Now that we've done that, we can talk like equals. I'm Commander Sarah Chun. What's your name?" "I am Warlord Crixthal. I have led my fleet for 40 years. We have consumed 17 worlds. You think you can frighten us with one victory?" "I don't want to frighten you," Chun said. "I want to talk business. See, we've been studying your people, your fleet movements, your resource consumption, your patterns. You take what you need to survive. We get it. But what if there was a more efficient way? Velkoth watched through the drone feeds as the situation unfolded. The humans had brought food. Real food, not just rations. They had brought water, medical supplies, technical readouts. And they had brought an economic analysis. Chun presented it to the Devourer warlord like she was proposing a trade agreement instead of talking to a genocidal raider. She showed him calculations, resource projections, trade route maps. She explained how cooperation would yield more resources with less risk than raiding. "You've been doing this for 300 years, Chun said. How many ships have you lost? How many warriors? Raiding is expensive. It's dangerous. And every species you destroy is one that can never trade with you again. You're reducing your own future options." "We are strong," Quickstall said. "We take what we need." "You're survivors," Chun corrected. "You do what you have to do to keep your people alive. That's not weakness. That's strength. But strength isn't just about taking. It's about building, growing, creating systems that last." The negotiation went on for hours. Velkoth listened to all of it. He heard Chun acknowledge the Devourer's power, validate their history, respect their culture, and then, slowly, carefully, offer them something they'd never considered. An alternative. What terrified Velkoth wasn't that Chun was negotiating with monsters. It was that she genuinely didn't see them as monsters. She saw them as people in a difficult situation who had developed a survival strategy that happened to be horrifying to others. She spoke to Quickstall the same way she'd spoken to the Stone Brotherhood members. The same way she spoke to everyone, like they were reasonable people who just needed to understand their options. And impossibly, it worked. The Devourer Queen herself agreed to meet with human negotiators after Quickstall reported back. She was an ancient being, older than most civilizations in the Council. She had personally overseen the destruction of 6 species. She agreed to a trade summit. The Council was stunned. In 3 weeks of negotiation, the humans accomplished what 3 centuries of warfare hadn't. The Devourers agreed to a trial trade agreement. 1 sector, 1 year. They would trade instead of raid and see if Chun's economic projections held true. The treaty was signed on a neutral station. Velkoth attended as the Council's official observer. He watched Commander Chun shake hands with the Devourer Queen, both of them smiling. Well, Chun was smiling. The Queen was doing something with her mandibles that might have been the equivalent. "This is a good day," Chun said to Velkoth after the ceremony. "We prevented a war, saved billions of lives, found a peaceful solution. Everyone wins." Velkoth looked at her. This human who had fought her way onto Devourer ships, killed their warriors, and then offered them economic partnership. This human who saw no contradiction in any of it. "Commander," he said slowly, "do you understand what you've done?" "We helped," Chun said, looking genuinely confused by the question. "You befriended the species that destroyed 12 civilizations. You treated them like they were just misunderstood." "They were misunderstood," Chun said. "They're survivors doing what they thought they had to do. Now they know they have options. That's progress." Velkoth's antennae drooped. What if they betray the treaty? What if they go back to raiding? Chun's expression hardened slightly. Just a little. Just enough for Velkoth to remember that this pleasant human had personally killed at least 30 beings in the past few months. "Then we'll stop them," she said simply. "We'll do what's necessary. But hopefully it won't come to that. I believe in giving people chances to do better. Most people take them." Later, much later, Velkoth recorded his final report on human psychology. He sat alone in his quarters, his antennae still twitching from the day's events, and spoke his observations into the official record. "Humans are the most dangerous species I have ever encountered. Not because they are particularly strong, though they are formidable, Not because they're cruel, because they're actually quite kind. They're dangerous because they cannot see themselves as anything other than the heroes of their own story. They will fight you with absolute conviction. They will kill you if they think it's necessary. They will destroy your civilization if they believe it serves the greater good. And then they will offer you medical care and try to understand why you oppose them. They are terrifying because they genuinely believe they are good. They believe everyone can be reasoned with. Everyone can be understood. Everyone deserves a chance at redemption. And they act on these beliefs without hesitation or doubt. I have watched Commander Sarah Chen negotiate with terrorists and warlords and treat both with the same patient kindness she shows to children. I have watched her kill without remorse and heal without judgment. And I have realized that to her, both actions serve the same purpose: helping. The humans will change the galaxy. I'm certain of that. What I'm uncertain about is whether we'll survive the help they're so determined to provide. Because humans don't ask if you want to be saved. They just save you, whether you like it or not. In conclusion, recommend full council membership for humanity. Not because I trust them, but because having them outside the council would be far more dangerous than having them inside it. At least if they're members, we can try to direct their terrifying helpfulness toward external threats rather than internal ones. And may whatever gods exist help us all. Velkoth ended the recording. Outside his viewport, human ships patrolled alongside council vessels, protecting them, guarding them. Helping Dot, he shuddered and tried very hard not to think about what the humans might decide to help with next.